published on Michael Jackson's birthday this year as a tribute to him, and she did the whole dive on him, and it's the
Let me
best
find
dive
it.
on the history of Michael Jackson anyone's ever done, as far as I've seen. Breaks it all down. But
It's on YouTube?
basically, yeah, it's on her YouTube channel.
Oh shit.
Um,
Okay.
but it's like a full 45 minute, like the full thing. It's all of it.
Okay.
But we all kind of know about
This is it
Michael
right here,
Jackson,
chat.
how
I'll
he
show it to you
like
guys.
did things with kids or whatever, right? Neverland.
Hmm.
But once you actually look into what happened with Michael Jackson and what they accused him of and what actually got proven and all the allegations, that whole story starts to fall apart really fast. As in, like, yeah, he was a weird dude who had no childhood, who had like no parental figures, and he grew up to be this really weird, like big kid of a human.
Hmm.
But like actually all the like people close to him testify that he was like one of the kindest, sweetest humans you'd ever meet. And he was like wholesome in every way and a total innocent child. And all of the like children that were closest to him, people like Macaulay Culkin as an example, they tried to get Macaulay Culkin to testify against Michael to say that he did things with him. And Macaulay Culkin said, "No, I would never. Michael is like the best man I've ever known. He never did anything untowards. He's a saint. I admire him so much." And the only kids that ever brought testimony against Michael Jackson were kids that were in the process of getting some big Hollywood star deal from some Hollywood executives as they made those claims. Right. And so it's like, okay, that's kind of weird. And then the FBI did a 10-year long investigation of Michael Jackson where they went through all of his electronic devices and hard drives. They searched his whole, they investigated him for 10 years and they found zero evidence of any wrongdoing whatsoever. And they closed the case. Basically, the entire case against Michael Jackson was just done in the media by smearing him and kind of creating allegations out of people that had incentives to say whatever they were going to say. And it just, the more you look into it, the more that whole storyline about Michael Jackson being a just starts to fall apart. And actually him being a really sweet and lovely, like broken big child starts to
He didn't have a
replace it.
childhood at all.
Yeah,
He never had a
exactly.
childhood.
Yeah.
Why do you can you kind of go into why they wanted to destroy him and destroy his legacy so badly? Because he
Yeah,
came after some very powerful people.
that's the spice right there is that Michael Jackson, I mean, he grew up in the music industry, right? And he knew how it worked and he started to see how it worked and he started to see how musicians were getting taken advantage of. And more he saw how the record executives above him were taking advantage of him. And he started to call them out. And he started to build his own power. I mean, he was the king of pop. He had a lot of money. He started to buy shares of Sony and he started to buy up like the rights to his own music, the rights to other artists' music. He started to like make big, powerful moves on the music industry itself. And he was current, like at the time, he was naming record executives that were being bad to him and to other artists in the industry. And that did not sit well with, people. Who knows who. And then this whole smear campaign got launched, and that's, right. And so he fought the smear campaign for a decade and more, while he was trying to like buy his music rights and buy out Sony and create kind of this like security and safety and change the industry. And eventually, that wasn't working out well enough, and the charges weren't sticking, and he was still doing his thing. And then he just mysteriously overdosed on propofol. And that happened after, so all through Michael Jackson's career, his head of security had been this guy named Bill. And Bill was like Michael Jackson's dad. Michael Jackson's actual dad kind of sold him into the industry. He never really felt like he had a dad. And so Bill really was his dad. And he referred to him that way. And Bill was like 70 when he retired, like near the end of Michael's life too. And when Bill retired, Michael wrote him this really cute, sweet note of how like you're like a dad to me, and I don't know how I'm gonna go on in this industry without you. And I love you and I appreciate everything you've done for me and all that shit. And then Bill is retired and Michael's cycling through security guys. And about a year and a half, 2 years later, he gets landed with this guy, Fahim Muhammad, who would later be Diddy's head of security. And at the time, Fahim was like 21 or 22 years old. The dude had literally just graduated from college, allegedly, with a business and real estate degree. And he becomes the head of security for Michael Jackson, the most like famous musician in the
Yeah, that's
entire
not weird.
world. And then that year, like Michael Jackson mysteriously overdoses on propofol. And then the dude that, the head of security, immediately his very next job is to be in charge of Diddy's sexual blackmail ring, and he's been doing that ever since. And so to me, that all just adds up to be like, that was a hit. He got killed. He got allegedly unalived, and no one actually. So allegedly, Michael Jackson was alone in the room and did that to himself. And then the doctor was second on the scene, and he tried to resuscitate him and couldn't. And then Fahim Muhammad was third on the scene. But like, who knows who was in that room?
Yeah, who knows?
So then it starts to repaint this new version. Like, you start to have to re-examine all these artists, like the Chester Benningtons of the music industry, right? Prince. There's all and you go back to the 60s and the 70s, it just gets crazier and crazier. I'm currently reading Chaos, which is the book about Charles Manson and how he was actually probably a CIA asset, and all the 60s is weird. And then I'm also reading Strange Scenes from Laurel Canyon, which is all about how the whole hippie culture of the 60s and 70s, like everyone that founded that culture were the kids of intelligence agents.
I don't believe it.
Really looks like.
Yeah, I believe it. I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah, it's a crazy whole
because all the bullshit started. We want to talk about free love, feminism, the contraception pill. All of that stuff happened in the 60s, dude. It all happened.
And it all happened when there was a strong anti-war protest movement that was organized and effective and like kind of suit and tie. And then suddenly, like, all these new drugs that the CIA has been investigating get brought onto the scene with all this peace and love music. And that subverts the anti-war movement into this, like, whatever, bro.
Yeah, yeah.
And then that slowly gets more and more sort of like Fugue, crazy, like, and as the hippie movement kind of starts picking up steam, it steamrolls into the Manson murders, which look an awful lot like a CIA asset doing CIA stuff. I haven't finished the book yet, but like it looks an awful lot like they use that sort of momentum of the hippie movement to sort of discredit the whole anti-war movement as these like psycho druggy people that you can't trust.
And I think it's important for the audience to understand that, guys, after World War II, the intelligence agencies like took a way bigger role in doing, unconventional intelligence-based surreptitious warfare. And that's, coups and everything else like that. The days of like, being in a battlefield and storming beaches and like those days were done, man. Like, warfare now is done through information, intelligence agencies, etc. And then like biding your time nice and slow and phones.
Your phone.
Yeah. And then like me and you were talking about this earlier. Chat, did you guys know, and I'm going to talk about this more on Fresh Fit News probably next week and maybe later on, but guys, we talked about how Israeli intelligence, intelligently pulled off, right, this operation where they had these pagers exploding in the hands of Hezbollah fighters, right? Did you guys know that they put the explosives in some of these devices 9 fucking years ago? Like, dude, that's crazy. You had a 10-year-long intelligence operation. 10-year-long operation with putting this stuff into the phones and into the walkie-talkies and then detonating them all on the same day. Wild.
Yeah. The Mossad, the whole Israeli intelligence apparatus, is the best in the world. Yeah. They're not to be trifled with. Yep. There's a reason why Israel is in the position that it's in today.
Speaking of which,
and also for your audience and for the chat, if anyone in this chat, in this audience, is not yet like dialed in on their history of the CIA, I personally think that out of all of the history subjects and sort of like knowledge subjects that a man can be like well versed in today, I think that the history of the CIA is pretty damn high on that list. Partially because it's fun and it's interesting, right? It'll get your brain going, but partially because it's the most important thing to understand to actually have an informed opinion about what's going on out here. Because like it's kind of easy to understand all these different parts of our world, but the CIA, the history of intelligence agencies, is about how information gets subverted and twisted and used to manipulate you. And so if you don't understand the history of the CIA and all intelligence agencies, you're a fucking tool that can get exploited and twisted, and they can sell you fake news in your phone, and you don't really understand how and why all that works. But if you learn about the history of the CIA, you start to see through all the propaganda much more easily, and it's also just really enlightening and fun. So I highly recommend that. Just kind of like dig, whether it's reading books or watching documentaries, whatever your vibe is for learning. That's like my favorite avenue that I think everyone should know about.
So, guys, quick word from our sponsor real fast. You know we don't mess around when it comes to leveling up, and that goes for your coffee, too. If you're still drinking that sugary shit, you're already started your morning off wrong. 1775 Coffee's Protein Creamer is what real